Have you ever wondered why some people rise without rushing, why they seem to win without even fighting? In a world where everything screams now, where silence feels like weakness and waiting looks like falling behind, most of us are taught to react, to jump, to prove. We chase results, rush decisions, and call it ambition. But deep down, there's a quiet fear that maybe we're wasting our strength, that maybe all this movement is noise, not mastery. The Stoics would tell you, true power doesn't rush, it doesn't shout, it watches, it waits. Because patience, in its purest form, is not a pause, it's preparation. The warrior who strikes too soon loses his footing. The speaker who answers too fast reveals his ignorance. The one who cannot hold still cannot hold power. Machiavelli, whom we call Machiavelli, understood this, that the most dangerous move is not always action, but restraint. To wait not out of fear, but out of clarity. And when the moment finally arrives, to move with the full weight of wisdom behind you. If that speaks to something you've felt, an instinct, a restlessness, or a lesson life has tried to teach you, then stay with me. Because in this video, we're going to explore the forgotten strength of strategic patience. And you might just see the world and yourself differently. 1. The rare strength of the one who waits. Have you ever sat across from someone, smiled politely, nodded thoughtfully, and still felt that quiet pull in your gut saying, this person isn't what they seem? You couldn't explain why. They said all the right things. They were pleasant enough. But something was off. And weeks, sometimes months later, the truth came out. They betrayed your trust, broke their word, vanished when it mattered. You weren't surprised. You were just tired of knowing too late. Machiavelli once observed that men are ungrateful, fickle, false, cowardly, and greedy. A harsh truth, but not without evidence. The Stoics didn't deny human nature. They studied it. They understood that most people follow impulse over principle, mood over discipline, and comfort over clarity. Marcus Aurelius didn't resent this reality. He used it to become immovable. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. But that power begins not in reaction, but in restraint. Imagine a seasoned general who faces a reckless opponent. His enemy rushes forward, brandishing weapons, eager for glory, but the general does not move. He watches, he waits, because he knows the terrain, the weather, the wind. He knows that the river his enemy must cross will rise tomorrow. He knows that hunger will weaken them after 2 days of marching, and so he lets time fight for him. When the moment comes, he moves once, decisively, and without resistance. That is strategic patience, not passivity, not hesitation, but preparation. It's the courage to stay still while others reveal themselves, while they expose their greed, their fear, their need to be seen. Most people cannot bear silence. They act not because it's time, but because waiting makes them feel invisible. And so they strike too early, speak too soon, commit to outcomes that haven't matured. The Stoic strategist does the opposite. He observes. He gathers what others waste, their habits, their contradictions, their desperation. He sees the patterns before they form. He is not in a rush because he understands that anything rushed carries within it the seed of its own undoing. You've seen it in business, in friendships, even in love. The one who speaks too fast to impress, who commits too soon to be accepted, who chases the quick outcome over the lasting one. But the one who pauses, who lets the silence do the heavy lifting, often becomes the one everyone eventually trusts. Because their words are rare, their movements are measured, and their victories, though delayed, tend to endure. This isn't about being manipulative or cold, it's about seeing clearly. The Stoics didn't advocate detachment from others, they advocated discernment. You cannot control what others are, but you can decide when to act. You can choose when the time is right, and that choice, more than any impulse, defines your strength. So the next time you feel that burning pull to respond, to fix, to chase, ask yourself, is it the right moment or just the loudest one? Because true wisdom isn't loud, it listens first, and the one who waits well usually wins well. Let's keep going. Because once you understand the cost of premature action, you'll see the battlefield of life in an entirely new light. 2. Timing is the highest strategy. Have you ever made a choice that felt right at the time, only to realize later it was just too soon? Maybe you spoke a truth the other person wasn't ready to hear. Maybe you launched an idea before the ground was steady beneath it. Or maybe you simply moved because you were tired of waiting, not because the time had truly come. Machiavelli once advised those who held power that among all elements of strategy, timing is the most misunderstood. Not intelligence, not resources, not even drive. Timing, because to act too soon is to waste. To act too late is to lose. But to act precisely when the moment has ripened, that is the rarest and most powerful move of all. The Stoics would agree. Seneca wrote, "Delay is not denial." And Epictetus reminded us, "No great thing is created suddenly." The fruits of patience are not just ripened by time, but by awareness. The Stoic isn't idle while waiting. He is watching, studying, preparing, reading the weather of human nature, and waiting not for the moment he wants, but for the moment that serves the highest outcome. Take, for example, the story of Francesco Sforza, a man born into a world of shifting loyalties, where ambition devoured the unready. He did not rise through loud declarations or reckless grabs for power. He built quietly, formed alliances slowly. He watched rivals destroy each other in their haste, and only when the balance of Milan tipped in his favor did he strike. One move, no waste, total control. This wasn't luck, it was design, years of strategic silence, because true patience isn't about doing nothing, it's about doing only what is necessary, exactly when it matters. It's about letting your enemies drain themselves in effort, letting allies prove their loyalty over time, and letting false opportunities fall away on their own. You preserve your strength, your position, your dignity, until the game is yours to win with a single move. But most people can't wait, not because they lack ability, but because they lack discipline. They confuse urgency with importance. They feel a moment of pressure and treat it as a command, so they act. Prematurely, blindly, and then they spend years cleaning up the ruins of a decision made in haste. The Stoic sees this and refuses to follow. He may be underestimated at first, seen as passive, quiet, but over time the truth emerges. He is not still, he is steady. He is not slow, he is exact. And when he moves, the world feels it. So ask yourself, what in your life are you pushing too hard, too soon? And what are you overlooking simply because it hasn't matured yet? Because the most powerful move is not the loudest. It's the one no one sees coming until it's already done. And sometimes the greatest show of strength is the choice to wait. Let's continue, because strategic patience doesn't just shift outcomes, it shapes perception. And the next part will show you how mastery in timing becomes mastery in influence. 3. When silence becomes strategy. Have you ever felt exhausted, not from what you've done, but from what you were told you had to do, from constantly reacting, constantly proving, constantly moving, without ever truly getting anywhere? It's a familiar feeling in today's world. Everyone is running. Few are arriving. Modern leadership has turned into performance, a race of quick declarations, instant responses, and rushed decisions. We've mistaken urgency for clarity and momentum for mastery. Leaders now often announce their plans before the ground is ready. They commit energy before conditions align. They respond to every challenge as if silence were weakness and restraint a flaw. But as Marcus Aurelius said, the closer a man is to calm, the closer he is to strength. The Stoics never equated movement with progress. They measured a man not by how much he did, but by how aligned his actions were with reason, timing, and purpose. Machiavelli echoed this when he wrote that the wise leader is one who distributes action and inaction in the right proportions. Not everything demands a response. Not every challenge deserves your energy. And not every opportunity is truly ripe just because it is visible. Imagine an orchestra, every musician skilled, every instrument tuned, but one player refuses to follow the conductor's rhythm. He plays his part at double speed, eager to show his mastery. He isn't wrong in technique, but he's wrong in timing. And so, instead of harmony, we get chaos. That's what happens in modern leadership. Politicians rush to speak before understanding. Executives chase trends instead of preparing foundations. Creators release before refining. The result? Projects collapse. Momentum fizzles. Trust erodes. Not because the vision was flawed, but because the tempo was ignored. There was a young entrepreneur once, let's call him Daniel, who launched a promising product. The idea was strong. The team was capable, but Daniel, caught in the noise of comparison and competition, pushed too fast. He launched before the market was ready, before his system was stable, before his story was clear. For a few weeks, things surged. Then came the bugs, the backlash, the burnout. What could have been great became forgettable, not because of lack, but because of haste. Had he waited, refined the user journey, listened more deeply to early testers, aligned his timing with demand, he could have built something lasting. But like many, he mistook movement for mastery. The Stoic doesn't rush because the world rushes. He chooses his pace. He listens to the rhythm of necessity. He acts when action aligns with truth, not with pressure. So the question is, are you playing your own tempo, or have you let the world speed you up? Because the difference between noise and music is rhythm. And once you master the rhythm of timing, knowing when to move and when to wait, you don't just lead, you conduct. Let's move forward. Because in the next part, we'll explore how patience not only protects your clarity, but transforms your presence into quiet power. 4. Stillness commands the room. Have you ever been in a room with someone who says almost nothing, but everyone listens when they speak? They don't rush, they don't plead, they don't need to win the room, and yet, somehow, the room moves around them. That is the quiet force of strategic patience. It's not about silence for the sake of it, it's about presence. The kind that unsettles, not because it's loud, but because it's unshakably calm. The Stoics knew that desperation weakens the soul. Epictetus wrote, "He who is not a slave to his desires is free, and freedom, in the eyes of the wise, is more powerful than control." When you're not attached to an immediate outcome, when you can wait without flinching, you shift the weight of every conversation, every negotiation, every relationship. Machiavelli understood this deeply. He saw how time itself becomes a weapon in the hands of the disciplined. The one who can wait, truly wait, without revealing frustration or need, always ends up in control, because the impatient reveal their position. They talk too soon, commit too early, and show their cards out of discomfort. But the patient strategist, he gathers, he watches, He builds leverage in silence. Imagine two merchants at a table. One can't stop checking the clock. He speaks quickly, lowers his price, fears losing the deal. The other leans back, unbothered, sipping his tea. He knows the value of what he offers. He doesn't need this moment because he trusts in the long game. Who holds the power? It's not the one with more words. It's the one with more control over himself. Each day you wait with intention, not out of fear, but with clarity. You gain something most people never notice: insight. Time reveals patterns. The impatient jump at shadows. The observer begins to see every misstep, every contradiction, every change in tone. They all become pieces of a larger picture. And as that picture becomes clear, so does the path. In war, the greatest generals don't just study maps. They study men. They wait for the hunger to settle in the enemy's camp. They notice when supply lines thin. They move only when the terrain, not just the enemy, is on their side. In life, it's the same. Relationships, business, influence, none of it belongs to the first mover. It belongs to the wisest one. So here's the truth. When you master patience, you no longer chase power. You become power, and the world senses it. And if you've ever felt like your silence wasn't being noticed, let this be your reminder. It's not about being noticed. It's about being undeniable when the time comes. Let others scramble. Let others speak. You build your leverage in stillness. If this spoke to you, take a moment. Breathe. Drop a quiet stillness wins in the comments to anchor this in. And if you're finding value here, subscribe, not for me, but for the future version of you who's learning to wait with purpose. Now let's move on, because patience doesn't just change how others see you, it changes how clearly you see the game. And in the next part, we'll explore how the disciplined eye always sees what the restless mind misses. 5. Don't choose until it's time. Have you ever made a decision just to escape the discomfort of not knowing? Just to feel like you were moving, even if you weren't sure where it would lead? That quiet pressure to choose, to commit, to define, to declare, can feel unbearable. And yet, often it's in that space of uncertainty where real power lives. The Stoics taught that clarity does not come from rushing toward resolution, but from staying rooted when the winds of chaos blow hardest. Seneca once wrote, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay." But it's not just anger that needs delay, it's all impulse. Because when you act before the time is right, you don't just risk failing, you forfeit all other paths. Machiavelli understood this with surgical precision. He warned that nothing closes the door on your future like premature commitment. When a leader ties himself too quickly to one course of action, he loses the ability to adapt. The world shifts, but he cannot. The enemy pivots, but he's locked in. His will may be strong, but his options are gone. Strategic patience is not just about watching others. It's about preserving your ability to respond when conditions change, like a seasoned chess player who holds his queen back. Not out of fear, but out of wisdom. He waits until the moment she can strike with maximum effect. That's not hesitation. That's calculation. I once knew a man named Elias who was offered a high-paying job in another city. Everything looked perfect on the surface: status, money, prestige. Everyone told him to say yes, but something in him paused. He asked for time. While others thought he was indecisive, he observed. Over the next 2 weeks, the company's leadership changed. Promises shifted. Hidden cracks appeared. And with quiet certainty, Elias declined. Months later, the department he would have led was dismantled. Had he rushed, he would have been trapped. Elias didn't freeze. He didn't procrastinate. He simply refused to choose until the landscape was clear, and that one decision preserved not only his options, but his peace. When you act too soon, you shrink the map. You cut off roads that might have led to greater ground. The Stoic way is not to cling to safety, but to guard your flexibility until you can move with force and precision. Until your decision aligns not just with desire, but with reality. It's easy to think that strength is found in bold declarations, in quick commitments, in grand gestures of certainty. But often, the truest strength is the quiet refusal to be cornered by your own impatience. So the next time you feel the urge to act, just to escape uncertainty, pause. Stay still. Let the fog clear, because every option you protect today may become your greatest advantage tomorrow. And that leads us to something deeper still, because patience doesn't just shape action, it transforms the battlefield itself. Let's move forward. 6. The quiet ones. Win. Have you ever been blindsided, not by a loud threat, but by something that crept in slowly, silently, until it was too late to stop? A betrayal that had been building behind polite smiles. A failure that began long before the moment it became visible. In life, it's not always the obvious storms that ruin us. Sometimes it's the quiet observer, the patient adversary, the one who never rushed. Machiavelli, in his writings on Livy and the Roman Republic, warned of this exact enemy, not the one who charges in with fury, but the one who waits, the one who studies your rhythm, your impulses, your blind spots. And when your guard is lowest, they strike, not loudly, but effectively. The Stoics understood this as more than strategy. They saw it as a reflection of nature itself. Marcus Aurelius observed, "What stands in the way becomes the way." The disciplined mind does not force moments, it reads them. Strategic patience isn't the absence of action. It is the quiet orchestration of advantage, a deliberate readiness that gathers insight, builds strength, and moves only when the movement is irreversible. Consider the story of Fabius Maximus, a Roman general mocked by his peers as the delayer. While others craved glory through direct battle with Hannibal, Fabius did the unthinkable. He waited. He refused engagement. He studied terrain. He watched the enemies starve themselves through overextension. His strategy was ridiculed until it worked. Until his restraint preserved Rome itself. That's the nature of strategic patience. It serves many purposes at once, without announcing itself. It gathers information. It reveals patterns others are too rushed to notice. It builds resources while others spend. It tests loyalty. It tempts opponents into exposing their intent. And all the while, it refuses to commit until the path is clear and the terrain is yours. In our own lives, the enemy isn't always a person. Sometimes it's a challenge, a temptation, or even an opportunity that seems urgent but isn't ready. Most people rush to fix, to win, to grab, but in their haste, they narrow their vision, they commit too soon, they exhaust their strength before the real trial even begins. The Stoic strategist remains still, not because he fears action, but because he honors timing. He knows that to move at the wrong time is worse than to stand still, and he understands that waiting is not weakness, it is weaponry, invisible until necessary. Think of the choices before you right now. Which ones are asking for quick answers, and which ones are quietly inviting deeper observation? Not every open door must be walked through. Not every conflict must be answered. Not every battle is yours to fight, at least not yet, because there is a power in restraint that force can never match. And those who understand this don't just survive, they reshape the battlefield before they even step onto it. Now let's continue. Because the one who sees clearly does not only wait, they act with precision. And in the next part, we'll explore how patience transforms not just power, but perception. 7. Be the river and the banks. Have you ever stood beside a river swollen with rain, wild, loud, unstoppable, and felt both awe and fear? That power, unchecked, destroys, but channeled, it gives life to cities, feeds crops, shapes the very land. This is what strategic patience looks like. Not weakness, not delay, but power, contained, directed, and ready. In a world that worships speed, the one who waits becomes a mystery. Today, leaders are judged by how fast they respond, not how wisely they act. Results are measured in quarters, not in decades. Communication is instant, reactions are immediate, and attention spans vanish in seconds. Yet, amidst this chaos, the one who practices restraint, who acts not quickly but correctly, stands apart, not because they are louder, but because they are precise. Machiavelli understood this. He said, "Fortune is like a river, at times generous, at times destructive, but always requiring structure." He called for banks, boundaries of discipline and clarity. Without them, even the most promising current turns into a flood of waste. Patience, then, is those banks. It's the force that shapes opportunity into something sustainable. Seneca might add, "No man was ever wise by chance." Because wisdom is not born in reaction. It's born in the stillness between impulses, the quiet pause before action, the space where clarity is allowed to grow. Consider the world of business. A negotiation begins. One party moves too soon, pressured by the discomfort of silence. They offer too much, reveal too early, agree too quickly, all to escape the tension of waiting. They feel relieved, but they've lost leverage. The other, the one who held steady, didn't need to manipulate. They simply endured, and the room bent toward them. Or think of the investor who panics at the first sign of market decline. They sell everything, react, bleed. While the disciplined one, calm, observing, waits, studies, sees the larger pattern. And when the tide shifts, they are already positioned to win, not because they predicted the future, but because they respected time. Strategic patience is not passivity. It is action in its most refined form. It is gathering strength while others burn theirs. It is choosing the exact moment, neither too early nor too late, when a single step changes everything. But most cannot do this. Not because they lack intelligence, but because they cannot sit in the space between. That tension, the not yet, the almost there, is too much. They flee to motion. They confuse relief with progress, and in doing so, they surrender the future to the present. The Stoic doesn't make that trade. He trains himself to hold, not just the sword, but the silence before the swing. He understands that lasting victory is born not from frantic reaction, but from deliberate rhythm. There is music in restraint, and mastery in those who know when to let the river flow and when to raise the banks. Now, let us go further, because there is still one truth we haven't touched: how patience doesn't only shape outcomes, but defines the strategists themselves. And that is where we'll turn next. 8. Know the rhythm. Respect the pause. Have you ever looked back at a decision you made in haste, only to realize that if you had waited just a little longer, everything might have unfolded differently? The opportunity would have clarified. The tension would have revealed its purpose. But instead, driven by urgency, you moved too early and paid for it. In The Prince, Machiavelli observed that the most effective leaders are not those who blindly follow their temperament, but those who adapt to the demands of time. He understood something many still ignore. The world moves in rhythms. There are moments to strike and moments to hold. And the one who cannot feel that rhythm, who reacts the same way in every situation, is not a leader, but a liability. This principle is deeply Stoic. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Observe always that everything is the result of change, and accustom yourself to consider that the nature of the universe loves nothing so much as to change the things which are, and to make new ones like them." In other words, nothing is fixed. The wise man does not grip a fixed response. He watches, he senses, he adjusts. Patience in this light is not passivity. It is sharpness. It's the blade that waits in its sheath until the strike will matter most. The skilled practitioner of restraint doesn't simply delay, he uses time to let the truth rise. He lets pressures build. He allows problems to expose themselves. He studies the reactions of those who can't wait, who reveal too much too soon. And when the moment arrives, he does not hesitate. He acts cleanly, decisively, and without need for revision. There was once a strategist in a powerful firm, let's call her Elise, who was known for her calm presence. She rarely spoke in meetings, rarely pushed her views. While others scrambled to win credit, to be first, she waited, watched, let the noise pass. One day, a deal was collapsing. Tensions ran high, proposals flew around the table, most half-formed. And while the room argued, Elise quietly placed a single folder on the table. Weeks of silent work. Everything timed, all variables considered. It was exactly what was needed, not just timely, inevitable. Her colleagues were stunned, not because she was loud, but because she was right. Because she knew what none of them could see until it was too late, that timing is a form of leadership. And those who rush to act rarely understand the terrain they're walking on. Machiavelli wrote that a wise ruler must learn from history, not just for content, but for patterns. Because repeated behavior always reveals when the fruit is not yet ripe. The Stoic thinker learns to see those patterns, not just in markets or politics, but in people, in conflict, in desire, in opportunity. The one who can wait for the ripening, who feels the moment turning beneath the surface, gains not just an advantage, but dominance. Because while others try to control, he understands. While others push, he aligns. While others react, he directs. And so the world defers to him, not by force, but by gravity. Let's continue. Because once you master timing, there is one final secret to uncover: how patience becomes presence, and how presence becomes legacy. 9. Rule yourself or be ruled. Have you ever looked back at something you gave your all to, a relationship, a career move, a bold new beginning, and wondered not whether the idea was wrong, but whether the moment was? There's a particular ache that comes not from failure itself, but from knowing that you moved before the foundation was ready. Like building a house on wet soil, no matter how beautiful the design, it sinks. Machiavelli warned us, nothing is more likely to fail than ventures begun with great promise but poor timing. It's a truth that cuts across life. The general who charges before his enemy reveals their weakness. The lover who declares too much before trust has formed. The entrepreneur who launches too soon, mistaking early excitement for true demand. The tragedy is not in the effort, but in the absence of readiness. To the Stoics, timing is not luck, it is discipline. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "What does not happen in due time is not brought to completion by force." You cannot bend the rhythm of life to your will, you can only align yourself to its flow. The strategist who sees clearly knows. To act at the wrong time is not boldness, it is blindness. To move when the ground is not steady is to ensure collapse. There's a metaphor that captures this perfectly. The undisciplined mind is like an open city, its gates unguarded, its people scattered, its purpose undefined. Every noise from the outside becomes a command, every provocation, a battle, every distraction, a detour. But the mind trained in strategic patience, it becomes a citadel, strong not in stone, but in self-command. It does not rush to meet every messenger at the gate. It does not panic at the first knock of urgency. It stands, it observes. And when it moves, the movement is final. Think of a battle. One commander strikes quickly, hoping for glory, but exposes his flanks and burns through resources. The other watches. He lets his opponent overextend, lets the terrain shift in his favor, waits until the supply lines thin and morale cracks. Then he strikes, not recklessly, but with precision. The war is not won in that moment. It was won in the waiting. Strategic patience is not about doing less. It's about doing right. It is mastery made visible, not through control of others, but through control of self. While the world mistakes motion for progress, the Stoic knows that motion without direction is wasted strength. That noise without clarity is just another form of weakness. And so, when others rush, the strategist remains anchored. When others panic, he studies. When others act from pressure, he acts from principle. Not to impress, not to win quickly, but to win rightly. What does that look like in daily life? It looks like not responding to every insult, not chasing every trend, not jumping into every opportunity that glitters. It looks like taking the time to watch someone's actions before believing their words. It looks like stepping back when everyone else leans forward, so you can see the whole field, not just the urgent corner of it. So, if you've ever felt that urge to do something just to feel in motion, pause. Consider whether that urge is yours or simply a reaction to noise. Because the greatest power you'll ever wield is not force, it's timing. And the one who waits, not idly, but deliberately, doesn't just succeed. Now that we've walked through the heart of this lesson, take a moment and ask yourself with real honesty, are you acting because it is the right time, or simply because you cannot bear the silence? Are you building with intention, or rushing to ease the tension of waiting? Have you been trading clarity for speed, wisdom for urgency, and presence for motion? Machiavelli saw what many overlook. That timing is not a detail in strategy, it is the strategy. That patience, when practiced with purpose, is not hesitation, it is power made precise. The Stoics taught us this too, that true strength is not in force, but in restraint, and that some of the most decisive moves in life begin with a decision to wait. So if something in you felt seen, or perhaps challenged today, let it stay with you. Let it shift something. And when the time comes to act, let it be a move you don't regret. If this message gave you something to hold on to, something to build with, consider subscribing. Quietly, thoughtfully, only if it feels aligned. And in the comments, leave a simple phrase to mark this moment. I wait well, you're not falling behind. You're just preparing to move when it matters most. And in the next video, we'll go even deeper into how mastery of timing becomes mastery of life.